Hi everyone, welcome back. Our next step of our human behavior experiment is to start thinking about our hypothesis. And this comes after we've developed our idea. And if you remember from last time, we developed our idea from observing the world around ourselves, asking questions, and now we are supposed to develop a hypothesis. So let's look at how that works. There are some specific components we want to include when we create a hypothesis. It should be one sentence. I'll show you what this means, but it's an if-then statement. And we want to create some sort of relationship between independent and dependent variables. So in this situation, for most of our human behavior experiments, because they're the type of experiments they are, the source of our hypothesis is just going to be coming from those observations of our environment. We may be noticing events in our environment, we want to recreate those, or sometimes you create those experiments just to see what people will do, and you could retest those experiments. For example, I have a friend, and these two people, they lived together in an apartment, and one of them was kind of a neat freak, and the second one was kind of not. And not that either one was real bad or what, but the friend that wasn't really a neat freak would sometimes buy bananas and apparently leave them on the counter. And the neat freak friend, I don't know, it just kind of irked him. So one day I go over to their apartment and I said, "Your bananas are really bad. They look terrible." And he goes, "Oh, it's an experiment I'm running. I'm seeing how long my roommate will leave them on the counter before throwing them away." And those are kind of experiments that you can kind of run and kind of see what people will do as well. It's all about behavior. So let's go back to our idea. If you remember, we're talking about what's going to happen when the announcements occur every morning. Is it the bell that makes people stand up, or is it something else? And if you remember, when we were originally talking about this, we did think it was the little noise that the speaker gives off when somebody's going to make an announcement, and that makes people stand. So if I'm going to use that as my prediction, that the little bell makes people stand, then this is going to be my hypothesis. If the bell at the beginning of the announcements goes off and no one speaks, then, and what we felt was, this is the dependent variable, this is our prediction, we felt people will still stand. Then people will stand for the pledge anyway, I think we leave it as that. And I'm hesitant to put the because in, and I tell you why. Hypothesize. When you're creating a hypothesis, you can create it very general, so you kind of can leave it sort of vague, but you want to also be very careful to define your terms. In our case, I think we have it somewhat specific. We're talking about the bell going off and no announcements, and people standing. So very specific. But we want to leave room for some change, because maybe some things will happen. So I think we have our variables defined very well. And I'm going to leave this as our hypothesis. When you turn in the hypothesis, as a matter of fact, this statement is all that you need. The next step is to create that experimental design, and I'll share that with you. But before that, let's talk about how this is getting graded. So let me zoom this up a little bit so you can see it. This is the 3 column right here, okay? And it says that our hypothesis can be proven, and I feel that our hypothesis can. We're going to create an experiment that has the bell and nobody's saying anything, and we're going to watch to see if they stand. I feel like we're going to take confounding variables into consideration. I'm going to share that with you, what that means. And right now, I believe that we have our hypothesis done with very little help and completed on schedule and things like that. As a matter of fact, I think our hypothesis is probably in this area unless we count our class as helping. So right now, I feel like we're already in the proficient area and just something to be aware of. But let's first talk about what confounding variables are. What is it again? If you remember, we talked about this in class. A confounding variable is the idea that there are more things into consideration, we need to take more things into consideration than what we're actually talking about. And the example we used in class is murderers eat ice cream. If you remember, we said we made the conclusion that murderers eat ice cream because the murder rates in summer rise, as well as ice cream sales going up. And we felt that that could be a close relationship. However, when we were talking, you guys, we all remember, we decided that the confounding variable, the variable in the middle that's actually making murder rates go up and ice cream sales go up, is actually heat, the level of heat, the temperature. So a confounding variable is the element in the middle of those two variables that we feel are related. And it's something hard to kind of notice and something that we want to think about. In our hypothesis, and if you remember when we went through, we are going to create a control. If you remember, we said that we're going to have the bell going off on the announcement and then nobody speaking. Well, we also then, the second day we ran this test, we ran a control. So hopefully we have eliminated our confounding variables. The idea that the second time we ran the experiment, we had them hold the buzzer so that it would ding like normal, and then they would say, "Good morning, Kiel High." Our announcers would. And I feel that we eliminated our confounding variable because we ran this 2 different ways. You can run it multiple different ways, always changing the independent variable. Something to consider. Now, if I was going to be submitting my hypothesis, I may highlight this and say that this is our independent variable and these are the other things that we are thinking about doing in order to eliminate the confounding variable. So some things to consider. Right now, I feel like we are at proficient or above at least, and that is enough for how to develop your hypothesis. Thanks. Have a good day.